Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, welcome to the Caspian Policy Center webinar today. Our topic is increasing regional partnership in the Caucasus and Central Asia. We are very honored to have some extremely experienced, knowledgeable people. And welcome to Ambassador Vakhabov, who just logged on. What I would like to do first is give just a few words about what we're going to cover today. Historic developments and openings are changing the Caucasus and Central Asia regions, starting with the pandemic and now with Russia's criminal invasion of Ukraine, from the continuing development of the middle corridor for trade and transit to real major increases in direct foreign investment. The greater Caspian region is increasingly a nexus of increased interest and engagement for the rest of the world. Leaders from the 5 Central Asian states and Azerbaijan recently convened in Astana, Kazakhstan for consultative meetings, and they reaffirmed their commitment to enhancing regional collaboration and integration. Very important directions. But the question is, where do the countries of the region see themselves headed? What is driving the intra-regional shifts and cooperation? And where will inter-regional cooperation go next? As I said, we have eminent speakers today. I would like to introduce them first in the order that they will be speaking, and then we will turn it over to the first speaker. So our speakers today are, the first one will be, welcome, sir, Ambassador Javlan Vakhabov. He was Uzbekistan's most recent ambassador to the United States, Canada, and Brazil, where I had the privilege to work very closely with him and the pleasure. Before that, he was a senior member of the Uzbekistan National Security Council, and he served as first Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's currently managing director of the International Institute for Central Asia in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Our next speaker then will be Yerkin Tukhumov. He is currently the director of the Kazakhstan Institute for Strategic Studies under the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Previously, he served as a senior diplomat in Russia, as well as having had senior positions on the Security Council and at the Foreign Ministry of Kazakhstan. Next will be Ambassador Farid Shafiev. Ambassador Shafiev is chairman of the Baku-based Center of Analysis of International Relations, or as people call it, the AIR Center. He has a PhD in history from Carleton University and an MPA from Harvard Kennedy School. He's the former ambassador of Azerbaijan in Canada and in the Czech Republic. And then last but certainly not least, we have Eric Rudenschild. He is currently a senior fellow here at the Caspian Policy Center in Washington, D.C., and the former director for Central Asia at our National Security Council, where he served under both the Trump and Biden administrations. He also teaches courses at Johns Hopkins University School for Advanced International Studies and at George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. So welcome to you all, sirs. We are pleased and honored to have you here. I'm going to turn to Ambassador Vakhabov. Sir, will you please give your presentation? We'll continue with the presentations. I will ask a few questions, and then we will open it up to our very large audience. I understand we have nearly 90 people, if not more, who are watching this program, to this webinar today. So, Ambassador Vakhabov, over to you, sir. And be sure to demute your speaker. There we go. All right, sir, to you.
Ambassador Hoagland, great to be with you now in my new role at the International Institute for Central Asia. It's my absolute delight and distinct honor to share this floor with such a distinguished panelists joining today's webinar. And I'm very much grateful to the organizers of this event, and it's a privilege to be a part of this timely discussion, especially as it comes only a month after the Astana summit, where I personally witnessed the sixth consultative meeting of Central Asian heads of states. So that summit reaffirmed the growing momentum for regional cooperation, and I'm proud to announce that Uzbekistan is taking over the chairmanship of the consultative meeting of the heads of states of Central Asia, making this a great opportunity to gateway our discussion to today's topic. So what's next for Central Asia? In thinking about what comes next for the region and beyond, so let's focus on some critical areas that are shaping the region's future. Just 7 years ago, the idea of Central Asian integration seemed far-fetched. Political and economic fragmentation, border issues, and water disputes created serious obstacles. So yet today we are seeing unprecedented levels of cooperation between Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. So investment projects across industries such as automotive, agriculture, and textiles have boosted the regional economy, growing it from less than $300 billion to 450 billion over the last 7 years. As Central Asian strengthens ties with Baku are also deepening. Azerbaijan provides a crucial role, I would say crucial strategic route to Europe, and collaboration across sectors like renewable energy, logistics, and transport is a testament to this growing relationship. Azerbaijan's involvement in the recent consultative meetings reflects its increasing role in the region's geopolitics. So one of the most pressing tasks is to enhance regional cooperation. During the Astana summit, so we took significant steps, including the adoption of the Central Asia 2040 concept. However, we still have work to do, especially in advancing agreements like the Treaty on Friendship and the establishment of a secretariat to facilitate ongoing cooperation. Achieving an economic breakthrough is crucial for the stability and prosperity of Central Asia, and our focus will be on creating single regional market, improving trade investment flows, and fostering industrial cooperation. So we must also prioritize the development of a common energy market, including the restoration of the unified energy ring of Central Asia. The modernization and expansion of our transport corridors are key to our long-term development. And Uzbekistan is actively supporting the Trans-Caspian route and the Middle Corridor alongside the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway. These projects significantly boost connectivity within the region and beyond, positioning Central Asia as a vital transcontinental hub. So while China and Russia remain critical partners in terms of trade, investments, transportation, and communication, due to global geopolitical circumstances, we are witnessing a gradual pivot towards diversified foreign relations. So countries in the region are exploring stronger ties with Turkey, the European Union, mostly represented by Germany, France, Italy, Japan, Korea, and the Gulf Cooperation Council member states such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates. So distinguished participants, so beyond the C5+1 format, we are seeing deepening cooperation between Central Asia and the Caucasus, as well as with South Asia. One of the critical elements of regional integration is Afghanistan. So Central Asia's development is closely tied to the stability and active participation of Afghanistan in regional affairs. So Uzbekistan recognizes Afghanistan's crucial role as a transit hub between Central Asia and South Asia, which is essential for unlocking new economic opportunities for all of us. So without Afghanistan's participation, our regional integration efforts will face significant challenges, particularly in transport and logistics. So the Trans-Afghan corridor, along with key infrastructure projects like the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway, has the potential to open access to South Asia and the Persian Gulf. So these routes will not only boost trade, but also facilitate regional connectivity on a grand scale. Additionally, water security remains a vital issue that affects both Central Asia and Afghanistan. So the ongoing Kosh-Tepe Canal project highlights the need for a comprehensive legal framework regarding transboundary water use. And it's imperative that Afghanistan be a part of these critical discussions to ensure that water resources are managed equitably and sustainably across the region. Recognizing Afghanistan's importance, Uzbekistan is committed to enhancing relations with the Afghan government and supporting efforts to stabilize and integrate Afghanistan into broader regional frameworks. So our Prime Minister, Abdullah Aripov, was the first high-ranking official to visit Afghanistan since the return of the de facto government. And his visit aimed at enhancing trade relations, resulting in the opening of the International Trade Center Termaz on August 29th. So this center was built to support entrepreneurs by improving the business environment, logistics, and simplifying administrative procedures. So a visa is only required for those staying longer than 15 days for business, employment, or studies. So additionally, Uzbekistan's commitment to the people of Afghanistan extends beyond trade. In 2018, under the initiative of President Mirziyoyev, a vocational educational center was established in Termez. To date, around 700 Afghan citizens, including 200 women and girls, have received training there. Recently, the assistant to the president, Saida Mirziyoyeva, participated in a roundtable discussion in Qatar, highlighting that Afghanistan faces a shortage of qualified medical personnel in maternal and child health care. As part of a landmark agreement, 160 Afghan women will receive medical education in Uzbekistan, supported by a 2.2 million investment from Qatar. This initiative, financed through a memorandum between Uzbekistan's Ministry of Higher Education and Qatar's Education Above All Fund, will provide both educational and living expenses for the Afghan women. So, dear colleagues, looking ahead, it's critical to continue nurturing partnerships, not only with traditional partners such as Russia and China, but also newer players like the European Union and the Gulf Cooperation Council member states. Uzbekistan, for example, has signed significant agreements with the European Union on critical raw materials, positioning the region as a strategic partner in the global supply chain. And while each country continues to strengthen its national identity, we believe that forming a collective regional identity is equally important. Initiatives such as One Tour, All Region tourism concept and the Scientific Forum on Regional Identity in 2025 will help us foster a sense of we, the Central Asian nations, which will underpin future integration efforts. We are fully aware of the responsibilities and opportunities that lie ahead, and our region is a turning point, and the decisions we make today will shape certainly the future for generations to come. It is up to us to create a region that not only works together, but thrives together. We are the ones who will shape this future, one of deep integration, stronger cooperation, and lasting prosperity. So what is next? What comes next is a stronger, more united, resilient Central Asia, ready to face the challenges of rapidly changing world, while creating opportunities for our people and future generations. Thank you, Ambassador Howard.
And thanks to you, Ambassador. We really appreciated that wonderful tour of the horizon, looking beyond the Caspian region to important players. For those of you who have joined and are watching, please note that you have a question and answer icon at the bottom of your screen, and you can submit questions, and we will be asking your questions to our speakers after they give their presentations. So once again, thank you so much, Ambassador. That was an excellent presentation. We're turning next to Yurkin Tukumov from Kazakhstan. So over to you, sir. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Richard. Again, I really appreciate that you invited me and hosting today, and especially for Caspian Policy Center. I also made a report, my presentation, but I think it would be good if I say, some few words without any using prepared reports, because I think it would be good to have some more freedom in our conversation. That's very interesting that we are all former diplomats. I think it is not just coincidence, especially for Central Asian and Caucasian countries, because that also means that external factors playing a huge role in our society, in our internal policy. So this is just probably not coincidence for me. Speaking about the questions you sent us before, I would start with my understanding of the reality that yes, of course, Kazakhstan and probably all Central Asian countries have shown pretty strong resilience to the recent economic shocks, including anti-Russian sanctions. But I don't think that would be right to say that all this situation, meaning the war in Ukraine and other geopolitical situation, we can see as a main factor, as a driving factor for this striving to make our cooperation even better, to have some new understanding of connectivity. Javlon Vahabov already said that the kind of pivotal moment for our connectivity, for new period of our cooperation has started with Uzbekistan's new situation, new president. And I think even, if I say even longer, that the underlying factors for a better cooperation between our countries laid in the economic reason. We still look for Kazakhstan. It's still 85% of our export still oil and gas and metal. So it's altogether raw materials exports. For 33 years of our independence, I think it sounds not so good. and still less than 10% of our experts are not resources experts. And we need to catch up with not only our export diversity, but also with the diversification of our trade partners. This is the biggest factor for understanding of leaders of all countries of Central Asia and Caucasus to make better connectivity with each other. This is the first factor, the main factor. Actually. The second factor is already Javon Vahabov mentioned, it's political factors. I remember being as a head of Central Asian department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that how we struggled to make any tiny progress between each other in those years. So it was very strange situation. Everybody understood the necessity of better cooperation in water issues, in resolving border issues, etc. But still, we couldn't move just for an inch. But now it's the completely different situation, and we need to catch up with these missed opportunities in our cooperation, and we miss it a lot. Actually, we miss it many years to make a huge progress in inner cooperation within Central Asian states. And we don't have another 30 years of experiment, actually, because global warming, it's already here. And Afghanistan, new reality. We need to, it's not only about the Trans-Afghan corridor, but also new reality, how we can cooperate with Afghanistan itself in many issues, like in water issue, and a migration issue possible, etc. How we can perceive as a region Afghan problem. So that's a political reason, and I really appreciate the efforts of our leaders to catch up with the new realities. And I hope that year by year it would be better. And the third main driver, it's our demographic shifts. We have completely different demography. This is not post-Soviet demography. This is a new reality. It's more religious. So what we see, a new generation, more mobile, but at the same time, more technologically advanced, more open. They have different sources of alternative information, even in Turkmenistan, let's say. So it's a new reality, new demographic shifts that entails other shifts. And we need to understand in what region we're going to live in another 10 or 20 years. How we can call ourselves. Do we have regional identity? This year, the first time in my life, I visited all 3 countries of Caucasian region. Azerbaijan. I was shocked how little we know about this region. We call them as neighbors, but we don't have just, we don't have, we have little grasp of reality in this region, actually. And the vice versa is also true. Georgian, they don't know much about Central Asian states. So, but still we call themselves as a post-Soviet countries. I mean, what does it mean to be post-Soviet? Maybe we need to find new definition. I mean, bearing in mind that we have a completely new reality, geopolitical reality, economic reality, political reality, demographic reality. So it's a game. And many Georgian experts agreed with me that we need to understand what kind of values we share it with each other right now. I mean, calling post-Soviet, what does it mean? But what kind of values do we share with each other? And without this understanding, how we can build strong economic and political cooperation with each other. Maybe we should start as a think tank centers with this kind of united framework of what kind of values do we share with each other between Central Asia or within Central Asia and Caucasian region. It is good to understand, taking into account the exactly the same very radical demographic shifts in Caucasian countries. In Azerbaijan, I spoke mainly in English. Because of what? Because they educated their children either in Azerbaijani or English. In Georgian, probably pretty the same situation. But in Kazakhstan, we have different situation. We're still bilingual in terms of Russian and Kazakh language. And different situation in other Central Asian countries. So again, this is a good chance, golden opportunity to catch up in this direction as well, in the understanding each other, understanding what we need to start researching as a think tank centers, maybe with the assistance of US think tank centers as well. So it's again, you are trying to bring up a lot of questions, and I think I answered for part of them just. And I would like if we continue this discussion as we do right now with Uzbek partners. We started to meet with each other at least once a month. And I think it is good opportunity to better understand it between two neighbor countries, between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Thank you very much.
And thanks to you, Jurgen. Excellent presentation. One thing that I really focused on was that you made very clear that after 33 years of independence, the countries of the Caspian region are not now post-Soviet. There's a new reality. There's a new reality that needs to be defined. I can very much identify with that. If I can take a second to tell you that I first, as an American diplomat, served in Central Asia in Tashkent in 1993. That was a long time ago, 31 years ago. And at that time, Tashkent, Uzbekistan, Central Asia, wonderful, wonderful region and people, but it was still the Soviet Union, more or less. As I have lived and worked and traveled and talked throughout the region in the subsequent years, I have watched many, many changes occur. And that's what we're focusing on right now. Where are the changes going? So once again, Jurgen, thank you so very much for that excellent presentation. I'm going to turn now across the Caspian Sea to Ambassador Farid Shafiev. He is chairman of the Baku-based Center of Analysis of International Relations. As I said, he has a PhD from history in Carleton University in the United States. And sir, we look forward to hearing what you have to say about this important topic. Please,
thank you,
over to
Ambassador
you.
Hogeland. And I would like also to thank Caspian Policy Center and greet my good friends with whom constantly just would like to underline that right now our center established a strong partnership relationship with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. We have the joint expert council meeting led by respective institutions. We pay visit to each other regularly. I try to sketch some of the elements of our cooperation within these 10 minutes and also underline some problems and some challenges as well as opportunities and I try not to repeat what already my colleagues already mentioned. We have to look at the geopolitics of the region to understand what's going on, what compel the countries to cooperate closely. First, I think the biggest geopolitical challenge is the Russian-Ukrainian war and its implications, sanctions, and all related to that, the geopolitical fault line between West and Russia. Along that kind of geopolitical tension, we see also rising US-China, struggle, and who knows how it will evolve after US elections. But it definitely also has certain implication for countries of Caspian region. And third element, it's Afghanistan, what happened in Afghanistan in 21. Then we see Iran and growing tension in the Middle East. And also I would like to add the implication of the Second Karabakh War, maybe on the positive side that now, after the restoration of Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, the war and the end of the conflict, they paved the way for regional cooperation in the South Caucasus. And now indeed about cooperation. My colleagues already mentioned the growing format C5+, and President of Azerbaijan was in Astana for a C5+ meeting, C5+ Azerbaijan, and it's his second participation. He participated also in first such format in Tajikistan. Also quite frequent visits at the summit meetings. President of Azerbaijan visited in August Uzbekistan, and it was not only even about bilateral relations between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan, but there was some agreement to act together in third countries with some projects like in Afghanistan. And also I would like to mention the visit of President Tokayev to Azerbaijan in March this year, and where I had a chance, we met with Erkin Tukumov, and we talked about the expert level cooperation. In this regard, C5+ Azerbaijan assumes greater significance. Another important regional format is Organization of Turkic States. It's growing, it's institutionalized, and I think beyond what was initially perceived as a union of the common linguistic countries with the common history, language, religion, now it assumes greater economic significance, but also political significance. Moreover, I think, and I believe, the results of the Second Karabakh War, the Azerbaijan-Turkish partnership, military partnership, proved effective. And now we see a growing military partnership between Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan. Just recently, there was the joint military exercise between Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan in Kazakhstan. Another important platform behind C5 and OTS, it's our mega transitional projects. First is Middle Corridor. Now it's functioning what we know as a TITR, Trans-Caspian transport route, China, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia. But there is the growing discussion, and already some work began in terms of the second leg, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and with the extension to Turkmenistan. And in this regard, where is the United States here? Since we are this joint event with the Caspian Policy Center, European Union declared the program so-called Global Gateway and pledged 10 billion euro to that project, Middle Corridor. I think the American policymakers, if I may to say, a bit late in terms of the formulating consistent and coherent policy. And we hope that that kind of discussion will really compel, or at least encourage, to think about the greater involvement of the United States into regional matters. We have, though, some problems in terms of the certain lobby groups, Ambassador Hogeland, I mean, wrote about that, about the Minsk group and the role of Armenian lobby. But I think with the discussion about the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, some obstacles can be removed. Well, unfortunately, the U.S. Congress enacted again the so-called notorious Section 907. And that probably explains why recently Azerbaijan, and also not only this, the US Congress, but also European Parliament, the pivot to the East in Azerbaijan's foreign policy. I'm speaking about the BRICS, about Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That is, I think that is fixable, but we need greater conversation or greater discussion. One element and one point I would like to make, the countries of Caspian region, the Caucasus and the Central Asia, they, I think, manifested adherence to the international law. All countries supported Ukraine's territorial integrity. And in that sense, I would like, in that context, sorry, I would like to, again, to underline the fact that Azerbaijan delivering humanitarian aid to Ukraine. But in the meantime, it should be realistic expectation from the West that countries of Caspian region, when Russia is their neighbor, they won't be able, you know, to, well, there's if such expectation from the West, to change trajectory of their relationship with Russia. Russia is an important partner for those countries. And what actually my perception, at least I'm speaking about Azerbaijan, but I guess that the same applies to the countries of Central Asia. They don't want to be involved in the clash between the West and the East, because there's local economies, countries, migrants working in neighboring countries. The rising tension already had an economic effect, rising cost of living, inflation, food items, some construction items grew up. So what is leaders of those countries trying to do is to mitigate the consequences of those challenges. And here I think the cooperation, the suggestions, offers for cooperation should not be like that. Either you are with us or against us. It's not like that. We need to find a common ground, understanding complexities of the Caspian regions and the countries around it, the regional powers around it. And I hope that such intellectual discussion can contribute to that context. Thank you.
And great thanks to you, Farid. That was truly excellent. I especially am grateful for your candor as you were speaking there. I think that's very important that we speak the truth to each other so that we can move forward together better. I'm also pleased that you raised the issue of international organizations that are becoming more active in the region. For example, the Organization of Turkic States. That's really grown in recent years in importance for the region. We need to keep in mind, though, that the entire region, Caspian region, isn't fully Turkic because we have Georgia, Armenia, and Tajikistan, which is Persian. But nevertheless, the growth of international organizations in the region is a really important signature movement of how things are going toward the future. So once again, thank you for that, sir. I will now turn to my Caspian Policy Center colleague, Dr. Rudenschuld. I am certain, because of his high level of experience in the US government and experience in the region, that he will have some interesting things to say to us. So over to you, my colleague. You're next.
Thank you, Dick. I highlight and appreciate the comments that my colleagues here have made already. Try not to duplicate those. I really appreciate, this venue and these topics at this point in time, because we are truly seeing in this broader Caspian region a remarkable shift and growth and evolution. And I think when you look at the policies of the region, their growth, the cooperation that we see, these are processes that, frankly, as one of you had said earlier, were unimaginable 10 years ago, in some cases even 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, we are seeing a growth and a mushrooming of cooperation, and it's a remarkable achievement with countries that, not that long ago, frankly, didn't have good relations with each other. And yes, the elephant in the room is the war in Ukraine, Russia's second invasion. It brought with it tremendous upheaval to the economies of the region, transport, export routes, banking. I mean, these are really tectonic shifts that forced countries in the region to adapt. And in many ways, it reminds me of the times back in the early 90s, 1991, when all of a sudden you had a number of independent countries, but they weren't used to working with each other or engaging with each other. 1993, when Russia, Minister Gaidar essentially outlawed the pre-1993 rubles, and everyone had to scramble to come up with new currencies and then to figure out how they would trade with each other. In many ways, the disruptions brought on by the war in Ukraine and the economic upheavals that's come with that have forced countries in the region to again be resilient and flexible and adaptable. What's interesting now, of course, is this is a different generation. And I think Erkin was spot on and sort of highlighting the fact that it's a different group of people who are rising into government in these countries, but you have different populations of people that you're looking at now. Certainly, the impact of the war in Ukraine created real stresses for countries in the region. Just the disruption of trade routes, the need to find ways to move goods. It helped solidify the C5 countries to work with each other to find new transit pathways. We also saw Azerbaijan reaching across the Caspian, looking for opportunities to enhance cargo and energy cooperation, which to that point was possible, but it was very infrequent. That we didn't see this sort of regular drumbeat of cooperation that we see now. The Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline became an alternative for Russian-controlled pipelines. And, I think all of these kinds of changes, and certainly sanctions, have brought significant financial and associational changes to the region, and especially trade with Russia. I think, from the U.S. policy perspective, we have always sought to see the countries in the region be able to develop their sovereignty, their economic sovereignty, particularly where they certainly do business with Russia, with China, with Afghanistan, Iran. They're neighbors. You always do business with your neighbors. That's an understood component to any economy, but also to be able to do business beyond the region, and most importantly, to be able to do business with countries as the countries of the Caucasus and Central Asia want to do business, as they direct business themselves, rather than having larger economies sort of force their will upon the region. And I think That's what we're starting to see happen now. You see agency in the region that simply just didn't exist before. There's an awareness that this is a time in history where countries can actually work together. And we're seeing proof of this. I think it is this new period of cooperation. Several speakers talked about sort of the development of a common regional identity. And I think this is very much a process which is growing and needs to really continue to develop. There's a common ground that comes from countries that learn to work together. I remember one senior official a couple of years ago in the sort of the dawning of this period said, you know, we are much stronger when we are 5 countries together. And I remember saying to him, you know, you're preaching to the choir. And I think particularly now, as you see this trans-Caspian connectivity working, you see more cohesiveness between Central Asia and the Caucasus. And that's with hopefully with the peace process moving forward, we will see that process continue to strengthen and grow. And that's very exciting to see. Certainly, as we've seen in the past, trade policies in Russia have kept Central Asia and the Caucasus tied to Russia in a way. There's legacy pipelines and well, just the geography of the region has essentially allowed Moscow to play a long and
Eric, if you can hear me, you have frozen. Will you check your computer, please?
role into the economies of sanctions and region city. Sorry. Eric, can you hear me now? Okay. So
Doing well,
I think
thank you.
China has had a remarkable impact in that, I mean, if we look back 10 years, 5 years ago, imagining China to become Central Asia's largest trading partner was unimaginable because that was Russia's job. And now we've seen China really surpass Russia in many countries as the largest trading partner. We see now the middle corridor as becoming a real alternative to the northern corridor. 3 years ago, this was unforeseen. We would see, if you raise the idea of the middle corridor, you got basically skeptical responses from the World Bank and from others who are sort of saying, well, it's an interesting idea. But now it's actually a reality. Trade with the outside world has opened significant opportunities for countries in these regions. And, you know, it's a sort of a pull factor that's facilitating trade. If you look at the growth of ports along the Caspian now, the 7 ports in Kazakhstan, in Aktau alone, the improvements, the enhancements to cargo movement capabilities is remarkable. The expansion of the port in Baku to handle grain and other precious cargoes, it's truly a remarkable development that, again, unforeseen just a short time ago. Look at the single window cargo registry that exists between Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. It's increased container shipments from China across by 14 times just this year alone. Cargo from China to the Black Sea now takes 9 to 12 days. It used to take orders of magnitude more than that. You know, we're seeing similar connectivity to the south and to the east. It's been mentioned, the rail projects between China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, between Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, between Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan. We're seeing, you know, this massive explosion of rail, and we're even starting to see it maybe in the air corridors as well. Now, I would note this connectivity, these projects are not built yet, and so that becomes something of a challenge. We want to see these projects happen. The region definitely wants to see the projects happen, but it's a long way from signing a paper to actually realizing what's going on. But at the same time, this increased cooperation and partnership between countries is truly historic. And I'll point just briefly. Trade turnover between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan in 2017 was $2 billion. They've just signed, the two countries just signed at a summit, of $4.4 billion in projects, $2.6 billion in trade contracts. And, you know, trade between these two big countries makes up almost 60% of the regional trade. But trade turnover between these two countries this past year was $4.5 billion already, and they're anticipating trade to reach to $10 billion in the very near future. I mean, this is the kind of staggering growth that we're seeing taking place within the region, not just beyond, but within the region itself, where trade was not a strong point of cooperation between countries. And I think if we look at the process of trade facilitation, customs reform, transforming cargo operations, digitalization, you know, what took 5 hours in 2017 to clear customs now takes 30 minutes. This growing familiarity between countries and the improvements that are coming from this familiarity breeds yet more change and improvement. And I think, you know, we're seeing a lessening of dependence on Russia at this point. Certainly the labor migrants. Recent statistics show in St. Petersburg this year, there are 60% fewer Tajiks than last year, 40% fewer Uzbeks. And remittance totals to Uzbekistan have increased by 25% this year, but they're coming from workers in the United States, in South Korea, in Poland, in Germany. Their remittances are much larger, and they're replacing the other things. I think, you know, we've seen security cooperation grow in the region. The recent ballistic exercise in Central Asia is showing, you know, an interest in cooperating with each other and seeing a joint vision of security. And I think that's incredibly prescient at this point in time. You know, I think infrastructure takes time to build. There's a huge interest in the region, certainly. I think seeing the countries of the region working very hard to cooperate with each other to actually make the Middle Corridor something that is not just a dream, but actually reality. I think that commitment moving forward is what helps the Caucasus and Central Asia become much more than they are, and making them, elevating them into what is a real transport and trade hub and really crossroads centerpiece. Certainly the interest in the region is driving this, and I'm hoping that we see continued interest moving forward. I think as we shift from signing the signposts, I guess, of cooperation, the increased numbers of summits, the meetings, the agreements, we move beyond MOUs and roundtables to real results. And we're starting to see that now, and I'm hoping that we see more of that in the days ahead. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Eric. I am very pleased that you emphasized a new era of cooperation and identity. And on top of that, the role of the major external powers, a complex topic to consider. We have heard from our 4 principal presenters this morning. To our audience, I would remind you there is a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen where you can submit questions. We've had questions begin coming in now, but I'm going to take the prerogative of a moderator in this kind of a webinar and ask the first question or two. And let me start with this one. We have heard several of you comment that the leaders of the Central Asia 5 and Azerbaijan across the Caspian have established regular consultative meetings. Do you think that this could lead to forming a regional organization such as ASEAN in Southeast Asia, or the Baltic Council, the Baltic states of the former Soviet Union? What do you think are the possibilities of this? And if so, when would you see something like that begin to emerge? Is there someone who would like to answer that first, or would you require me to appoint someone to answer it. Anyone's? Yes, Fareed, please.
I think if
Please have your hand.
Yeah, if we look what happened, for example, with OTS, it was just a summit meeting 20 years ago. When 15 years ago, there was the so-called Nahchivan agreement about establishing Turkey Council, and then it translated into international organization with headquarters in Istanbul and several institutions in Astana, Tashkent, Baku, etc. Similar path we can expect at least from C5 plus Azerbaijan, because you mentioned that the OTS does not cover some other countries, and especially if we look at the central or Tajikistan. But Tajikistan is also very close country to Azerbaijan and to our neighbors. I mean, it's the same geography, the same history, overlapping many things. So I think it's quite interesting question, and I wouldn't surprise that in few years down the road will be discussion about creating something regional organization like C6, C5 plus 1, C5 plus 3. Speaking frankly, for me now it's a bit difficult to envisage that we create something like 8 countries. Because we're trying to do something on trilateral basis, South Caucasus, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan. Until we resolve all outstanding issues between Armenia and Azerbaijan, it's unlikely. But C5 plus Azerbaijan, it's quite plausible. That's my.
Thank you very much for that. Ambassador Vakhabov, I see your hand raised. Do you have a comment there for us, please?
Thank you, Ambassador Hoagland. Certainly, Central Asia needs its own club. And we think that it is quite possible issue, because we did have in early 2000s the so-called Organization for Central Asian Cooperation, which unfortunately ceased to exist. But now we are making some efforts towards a creation of new regional organization. So last year in Dushanbe, our leaders made a decision to establish the so-called National Coordinators Council unit that will be dealing with the consultative meetings agenda and other logistics. And moreover, so a proposal that Tajikistan came up with to establish a secretariat for the consultative meetings of the heads of states was actually fully endorsed by others, including Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. So in these terms, I believe this issue will be discussed further. So particularly during my recent visit, so we thoroughly exchanged on this matter with Ambassador Tukumov, especially dealing with so many models across the globe that might be applied to our region, and ASEAN format is among them. And in these terms, I think it's quite a doable issue, but in the meantime, we perceive from the understanding there that there should be a consensus among all Central Asian countries. And in these terms, we stand ready to go further, as much as our immediate neighbors ready to do the same.
All right, very good, Javlan. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that additional information. And I see that Ambassador Tukumov, you've been raising your hand. You have comments on this same question. So please, go ahead. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Javlon. I think after your words naming me as ambassador, I have to return to Ministry of Foreign Affairs and finally become as ambassador. Okay, but I think that it would be good if we institutionalize our cooperation finally. But the problem is that we have pretty not bad, but ineffective experience of institutionalization of Central Asian cooperation. So we've been trying for decades to make some effective regional organization, but we failed several times. And I think it would be good for time being that we don't bite off more than we can chew. For saying that, I mean that it from the long distance, it might be seen that we are a pretty homogeneous region, but of course it's not. Since the independence, we moved with a pretty different direction, politically, economically, and finally culturally. And now what we are facing, that we created different legislative that's kind of make some barriers between our cooperation. So we are trying to fix this problem, normative problems, infrastructural problems, and other problems, how we can say about effective regional cooperation within one region if we don't have enough communication within one region. You can't fly from Ashgabat to Astana directly. You can just fly via Dubai or Istanbul. That's very weird for the regional cooperation. So we are just trying to solve, I mean, we are just at the beginning of the process. So maybe it would be good if we think about the possible outcomes in the future and not to go beyond our capacities right now.
All right, very good for that. Very honest answer. I appreciate that. Excuse me. Eric, I'm sorry, your hand is up there too. I was about to come to you and I was getting a message on the side here. So please add, we'd like to hear what you have to add to this.
I think that this discussion right here sort of encapsulates what we're seeing in the region overall, is this need and for growth, for continued growth. There's a need for more cooperation and harmonization, which is incredibly difficult. And I think, the fact that the region has tried to work with each other in the past through various mechanisms and not done as well as they would have liked. I think, we have to recognize also, but we're at a very different time. And what was impossible 3 years ago is now becoming a reality. And so I think, certainly you've seen with the meetings of the 5 Central Asian presidents and now Azerbaijan thrown in, we're seeing cooperation, we're seeing engagement between these countries in a way. I think I've frozen again. There we go.
No, you're okay.
Okay, sorry that my screen was shifting. I think we're seeing reason for countries to work with each other. We're seeing it at the executive level, but I think we need to see it at the lower levels in order for legislation to be harmonized, for trade policies to be able to connect and work with each other. You can't expect presidents of all of these countries to have to deal with that level of detail. And so some kind of organization that would be able to facilitate that, I think would be a good thing at this point. It may take time for it to come together.
Very good, Eric. Thank you for that additional accurate information. I would like to remind our audience, you do have a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. You can pose questions for our speakers. We've had a few come in. I will certainly turn to one of those questions soon, but I'm going to ask one final question from me, and then we will go to our audience questions. Now, the one that I have been eager to ask this morning is Kazakhstan first defined something called multi-vector foreign policy very early on in its independence to balance the four major powers as they were seen: China, Russia, the European Union, and the United States. Now, the other countries in the Caspian region, on both sides of the Caspian Sea, I'm quite pleased to see have begun to understand and implement their own multi-vector foreign policy in the very same way. This is a way to increase independence and sovereignty, as has been happening over the past 30 plus years. So my question is, considering multi-vector foreign policy, one of the four original players considered was the United States. I would like to ask, do you think the United States should be doing anything differently in your region? How can we become a better partner for you? Do you have any thoughts on that? Yes, Yerkin, please. I'm pleased to see your hand. Go ahead.
Well, maybe I will answer just partially for your question, but I think more human-to-human interaction, more educational programs, more executive programs, more investments on non-oil sector. For example, when we are talking about cooperation between Central Asia and Caucasian states or within, we are mainly talking about kind of grand entrepreneurs. We are not talking mid-size or small businesses. So we have, but this is a kind of main drivers of our connectivity. We still didn't pay enough attention to mid or small businesses, which might be the kind of robust foundation of our cooperation, not big companies. So I think the not enough interaction between United States and Kazakhstan, particularly, or Central Asia. This bearing in mind new generation, this human-to-human interaction. Still, very few education program. For example, I just collected data about Harvard alumni in Central Asia. It's still less than 100 alumni. Still, for 33 years of independence, still less than 100 alumni. But for example, in South Korea, it's more than 6,000 probably. Maybe it's a detail, but still, it might represent something, differently from our perspective.
Right. Thank you so much for that thoughtful response. Any other replies to this? Yes, Fareed, I'm pleased to see you. Go ahead. Fareed, you are muted.
So I would like, yes, sorry. I would like to support what Erkin told about educational projects, but I think the biggest challenge in Azerbaijan-American relationship, as I already mentioned in my introductory speech, and CPC is known that the problem is the Armenian lobby. Just look, we had 907 enacted in 92, the time when the territory of Azerbaijan was under occupation, not the vice versa. Then in 2001, when America needed Azerbaijan support in operation in Afghanistan and also later in Iraq, because among few countries, the Azerbaijan supported the operation in Iraq. The waiver was enacted. And then after withdrawal of the troops in Afghanistan in 91, again in 93, waiver was restored. I mean, the 907 was restored. And President of Azerbaijan said, okay, so it means that our relationship is so transactional. In the meantime, I mean, we should remember that the United States supported important energy projects, and generally Azerbaijan's move towards independence, strengthening its state institution. But lately, under different pressures, especially last 2 years, the trajectory of our relationship, unfortunately, has changed in negative direction. You know, some people can speak about different things in our relationship. You know, what happened in the Second Karabakh War. But the President Aliyev said, I mean, recently, just a few days ago, what Azerbaijan did is nothing different from Ukrainian trying to do to restore its territorial integrity. But attitude is quite different. I think that's the biggest challenge in our bilateral relationship. But otherwise, of course, there is a lot of overlapping interest in economy, in political, I think, area too, taking into account the very complex relationship in Middle East, Iranian factor, etc. But speaking frankly, our current stage of affairs is not really good.
Thank you very much for that honest answer. I have personal experience with some of the things that you have raised, and so I was listening very closely to what you had to say. I see further hands raised on this particular question, and we'd be glad to listen to you. Let's go back to Yarkyn.
May I leave as I noticed it before? Thank you very much. Yes,
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to leave, but
I
we
gotta go.
appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you, and I really appreciate our discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your participation. I understand you have other things to do this morning, so thank you for having been here.
Thank you.
Now, Javelin, you have something to add to this, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, Ambassador Hoagland. Just a few words regarding the question you answered. You asked to answer. You know, there are a few pillars on which particularly Uzbekistan and the United States, so relationships rests. And one of them is mostly about Afghanistan, obviously. And, you know, yesterday I met with the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires, who is currently leading the U.S. mission in Afghanistan, but based in Doha, Qatar. And what I've realized during our conversation is that we actually share so the same approach towards currently happening in Afghanistan. We, I would say, are on the same page, saying to each other, we have a very pragmatic approach so to Afghanistan and to those people who are currently in power. And in these terms, I believe that we should continue these kind of discussions over what is currently happening in Afghanistan, not only about those concerns we share together, but also those opportunities that the new reality in Afghanistan so might offer to countries surrounding Afghanistan and nations beyond the region as well, including the United States. And in this regard, by the way, the U.S. ambassador is traveling to Termez, hopefully tomorrow morning, just to eyewitness what kind of opportunities we are currently offering to those Afghan entrepreneurs, people who are trying to do business not only with Uzbekistan, but the entire region of Central Asia. Another pillar is related to how we are enhancing people-to-people ties. And echoing to what Director Turkumov said, just wanted to underscore that I'm quite often exemplifying the progress we made closely working with the United States on developing educational programs. You know, over the last 5 years, the US educators trained more than 18,000 English-speaking teachers. Can you imagine? 18,000. And I'm sharing this model of cooperation with other countries, including China, which actually sent only 37 teachers, educators who are teaching Chinese at different schools and universities in Uzbekistan. This, which means only one teacher for per 1 million Uzbekistanis, which is nothing, given the fact that Uzbekistan and China are witnessing growing relations in commerce and investments. And of course, we need more Chinese-speaking people here in Uzbekistan, people who might be easily adapted to ever-growing China-Uzbekistan relations. And the last point is related to C5 plus the United States format. And so taking this opportunity, just would like to acknowledge those tireless efforts have been taken by Dr. Eric Rudenschol to make last year's presidential summit happen, along with our friends at NSC and the State Department and other US agencies and departments as well. And finally, this happened. And this is another model of cooperation that I'm exemplifying while speaking to my colleagues from South Korea and Japan, given the fact that these two nations were staying at the forefront while putting forward these C5 plus platforms with the whole region of Central Asia, but never hosted presidential summits. And I'm saying that these countries should follow these footprints of the United States and other nations in the region who made some success closely engaging with the region. Thank you.
And thank you, sir. We appreciate that addition. Some questions have indeed come in on the Q&A sector here. And one of them is not actually a question for you. It was asking, will this webinar be posted on the Caspian Policy Center website? And the answer to that for all of you who are curious is yes, it will be posted. So remember, our website is www.caspianpolicy.org. And that's how you can review and find some of the answers that have been given here. One other question that came in was actually from an international worker who is currently in Mongolia. And I think he asked a specific question about how Mongolia is looking at the great powers. I'd like to broaden that just a bit. And Caspian region, Central Asia especially, has reason to build stronger relations with Mongolia. Can you, gentlemen, especially Farid and Javlan, say if your government is looking at Mongolia as a potential, at least observer, perhaps, for some of the consultative meetings that have been taking place among your leaders? A curious question, but I'd like to know what you know about that at this point. Farid, anything?
Yeah, I tried to answer that question online, though I understood a bit differently, to take Mongolia as an example of how it builds a relationship between China and...
To change the question, yes.
Yeah, but very interesting question about Mongolia in the future. Why not? I know that at certain point of discussion of organization of states, for example, we have the observer Hungary, which is not like, to say, Turkic speaking country, but the Hungarian language is from the Altaic family. And the same applies to Mongolia. Maybe in the future, Mongolia might be an observer member of OTS if it's interested. With regard to other platform maybe my colleague Ayavlon will respond. Maybe C5 plus Mongolia. I don't know what about that.
Right. Thank you very much for that. I would like to ask, does anyone else have any thoughts on this? If not, I am going to ask one question because we're coming to close to the end of our discussion period this morning. In the best of all possible worlds, where would you like to see your country and your region 10 years from now, looking ahead? I know as a diplomat myself, whenever I would get that kind of question, I would say, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. But in the best of all possible worlds, where would you like to see this region? And Eric, you have the broadest view of this whole region. I would certainly ask you to chime in on this one too. Where would you like to see things 10 years from now?
Well, I think looking at the growth that we see, the increased cooperation, the increased interest from new partners with the region, Western partners, I would like to see this not just enhanced, but sort of put on steroids, where this region can become a hub for Western business, manufacturing, to create jobs within the region. I mean, we're seeing already an idea of onshoring jobs within the region and more cooperation on that front. But I would note that the Caucasus, Central Asia can trade north with Russia, but other countries can't do that as easily. And they can trade east with China, and they can trade south to South Asia. If you make a hub in this region for Western business and engagement, it helps facilitate this kind of trade, and it frankly helps facilitate the economic growth of this region and making it much more independent. And I think in the next 10 years, that's what I would like to see happen for this region.
All right, very good on that one. Any other input for that? Yes, Fareed, I see. Please
Maybe
go ahead.
Ayavlon first. Yeah.
So firstly, deepening political dialogue is essential, and strengthening trust, so based on openness, equality, and mutual interests through regular and systematic dialogue at all levels, we believe will enhance regional stability and cooperation. And this is a way how we should go through in order to see Central Asia prospering so in 10 years. So secondly, achieving an economic breakthrough, so which remains a priority, I believe, for all Central Asian nations. So focus so should be on trade, definitely investment, technology, to establish, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, a unified regional market. Thirdly, so advancing industrial cooperation so is also necessary. So developing a unified, the so-called industrialization map, and establishing a ministerial council so will support industrial projects. And expanding trade, logistics, and industrial hubs in border areas will improve regional connectivity. And we hope that that only this way we are currently working on should bring, as I said before, more secure and resilient Central Asia. And fourthly, optimizing transport and communication infrastructure, which is also critical, and creating a regional transport corridor strategy and a regional sustainable transport development program, along with forming a regional council on transport communications, will enhance logistics and trade efficiency. And the last one is mostly how we are envisioning a common regional energy market, increasing energy resource supplies and advancing renewable energy projects. In our understanding, will support sustainable development. Only these goals we are pursuing to achieve might bring us to a region that we are currently dreaming of.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ambassador. I noted that you emphasized intra-regional trade. And the recent statistics that I have seen show that that is really happening in Central Asia right now and across the Caspian. That's a terribly important development. In our Q&As, there was one comment that came in that I wanted to pass forward to everyone. And it was that there has been an emphasis on landlocked countries in the region. However, what's happening now is that they are becoming land-linked, coming together. And I think that is the direction for the future. Colleagues, we have about 2 minutes left here. I'm going to give you the opportunity to make one quick final statement if you like. And then we will say our final thank yous and move on. So, Eric, any final one sentence thoughts you want to add here?
Well, I think, we're seeing remarkable cooperation, and, we're unlocking connectivity through increased cooperation. And that's something that is remarkable and needs to continue.
Very good. Excellent point to make. Thank you for that. Fareed, I will turn to you. One final sentence thought that you want to make sure everyone remembers.
Yeah, well, as someone who is educated in United States, I would like to emphasize importance and I'm advocate of relationship with United States, and hope that we'll overcome current problems and will move forward with more broader agenda of cooperation. Thank you.
That's very kind. Thank you so much for that. And Shavlan, finally, you will be closing us out. We look to you for your final word.
Ambassador Hoagland, just wanted to reiterate, despite all those challenges our countries are currently facing, but our objective remains unchanged. What comes next, as I said before, is a stronger, more united Central Asia. And this is a doable task. We can fulfill it together. Thank you.
Thanks to you, sir. And thanks to our other two participants who are still on the screen. We've had a very broad-ranging conversation this morning. I have scattered notes all over. I'd like to pull that together later in the day. Do remember that you can see this again. You can check what was said on our website. This will be posted later today. And once again, thank you so much for your participation, and I wish you all the best in the future. Take care.
Thank you very much. All the best.